I'm going to try and share my screen if that's possible. Let me see. Okay. Okay, 1 second. Can you see my screen, Leona?
Yes, clear.
Okay, excellent. Just do a couple of more things for me to get set up. 1 second. Excellent. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. This is the first time I'm doing a webinar for CMA, so let's see how this goes. As Leona mentioned, my name is Ganesh Chidambara. I've been with the CMA for a year now. I did my core with CMA cohort 176, and I just finished my advanced training. And continuing this journey with CMA, and looking forward to reaching further on this journey. So as I mentioned, today's webinar is slightly different to the CPDs that we're used to. We won't be talking a lot about coaching core competencies, but about using the coaching principles to think about personal financial management, and hopefully you'll have something to take away from at the end of the webinar. The reason I am talking about finance is coaching for me is my third career change, and I spent over 20 years working in finance and related fields. I started my career as an accountant, working for global consumer companies as a business manager, finance manager, and I did that for a few years, and then I kind of realized that managing people is not something that I enjoyed doing. Therefore, I did the most obvious thing that somebody who doesn't enjoy managing people would do, and that is I went and got myself an MBA. Yes, that's how I think. So post MBA, I worked for a few years for in finance for global funds like Fidelity and Prudential, managing investment funds for them. Eventually I ran my own fund for a few years. However, the last couple of years I've been spending more time coaching, and in fact these days coaching does take up most of my time. But as I reflected on my coaching journey, I realized that quite a number of coaching principles can be very well adapted to thinking about building strong, healthy financial habits and improve one's personal financial management. So over the next 40 odd minutes, I'll try and integrate and try and adopt a coaching mindset to help you think about personal finance. So let's go. So the topic of the webinar was, taking a coaching approach to think about financial health. So what is financial health? In fact, what is health? The World Health Organization defines health as complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not just merely the absence of disease or infirmity. So it's got a holistic definition, complete physical, mental, and social well-being. And as in terms of aspiration, it aspires to maximize human potential. So if you think about financial health, what is financial health? That's the state and stability of an individual's personal finances and financial affairs. Typical signs of strong financial health include a steady flow of income, rare changes in expenses, strong returns in investments, and a cash balance that is growing. Most of us know and understand this. But why is financial health important? Because like physical health, financial health is fundamentally key to leading a happy and successful life. creating a sound financial present does more than just alleviate current stress. And that's quite relevant in today's day and age of COVID-19. It lays the foundation for a stable and secure financial future and lets you live a fulfilling life. So it's quite fundamental in that sense to living a complete and fulfilling life. And so who can achieve financial health? I would argue that almost anybody can. You don't have to be rich to be financially healthy. You don't need a six-figure income or a C-suite job for a stable financial future. In fact, quite a few celebrities who make a lot of money end up becoming broke. But your finances won't fix themselves if you don't pay attention to the areas that you need to pay attention. And hopefully, in the course of this presentation, I'll share with you how to figure out where to pay attention to achieve financial well-being. So let's do this. So I've got a few questions in the presentation, and as Leona mentioned, this is a webinar, so we are not going to be able to do breakout rooms to have more intimate discussions. So I would encourage you to use the chat function to share your reflections, your thoughts, your comments through the course of the presentation, and I'll keep an eye out and respond to the comments on the chat. So yes, what does a rich life look like to you? I'm going to give you a couple of moments to think about it, and if you feel like you can share your comments in the chat. So most of the people that I ask this question, it comes around financial freedom, experiences, personal achievement, giving back, and strong relationships. For me personally, it's about control over my time. Having the control over in my time makes my life rich. That's one of the reasons I made the transition from a corporate career to a coaching career, because it lets me do things that I personally value, and gives me a lot of flexibility. So that's how I think about a rich life. I'm sure each one of you has your own definition of what a rich life looks like. Yes, comfortable on expenses, investing in assets. Thank you. Actually, if you think about a lot of advice out there on financial advice, it's about cutting costs and investing better. Now, let me ask you another question. What is something you love spending money on? It could be something like books, for example. Some people like spending books. Some people like spending on brands, a Louis Vuitton bag, maybe. On the other hand, somebody says, I don't like spending money. So you've got extremes of views. For me personally, I love spending money on travel. That gives me a lot of joy, and I spend a significant portion of my income every year on traveling to new places. What if you could double your spending on what you love spending on? Theoretically, that should double your joy, because that's something that gives you a lot of happiness. And if I could double my spending on travel, I'll be like, wow, there'll be so many more. The world is so huge, I could see so many other countries and places. That'll really make things very exciting for me. So the reason I asked you this question, it helps you understand, what's the source of your joy, and, when you think about what you spend on and how it increases your happiness, it can be quite liberating in a sense, and that can help you focus on the important aspects in your life. So something else when it comes to thinking about finances is financial freedom. In fact, these days there's a term for it: the FIRE generation, FIRE, financial independence, retire early. So almost everybody wants financial freedom. That's quite simple. But achieving financial freedom is a much deeper process than most people understand or expect. On the surface, it appears to be about making more money. That superficial viewpoint ignores the process you must go through to achieve the goal. The truth is, very few people set out to achieve financial freedom just to get more money. Instead, what people really want is the things they believe money will buy. That might be personal freedom, power, flexibility, better quality of life, time off, like me, or any combination of these. Each person will have their own list. What's common among all these lists is a desire to lead a more balanced, fulfilled life. Financial freedom is just the external thing, money, which you project on this internal personal freedom, because we believe that the lack of money limits our ability to satisfy our desires. However, financial growth and personal growth are very interlinked. If you want accelerated personal growth, growing your wealth is part of the process. And this actually might surprise quite a few people because, some of the people who believe that, money is evil, who hold those kinds of beliefs. This is because you can't change the external circumstances of your life, which is wealth. If you can't change the person within, you can't be the same person inside and have external circumstances change. As coaches, we understand the power of reframing, shifting perspective. Therefore, if you want to grow personally, making your money grow and vice versa is actually interlinked. And if you can get financial growth and personal growth, you eventually get to living a balanced and fulfilled life. It's part of the same continuum. Therefore, I don't know if any of you have worked with financial coaches, but the objective of financial coaching is actually getting true wealth. Financial coaching provides the double benefit of working not only towards your financial freedom, but simultaneously achieving personal freedom at the same time, and hence living a balanced and fulfilled life. On an aside, financial coaching and financial advice, which is what most of the banks give us, are quite different. And if you're not clear what the difference is, you can discuss that in the Q&A. So coming to coaching, how can we use a coaching approach to think about personal finance? Luckily, we are all part of the the CMA family, and we've got access to the robust ACC model. We've had webinars where we've explored ACC model in a variety of growth areas, personal growth, etc. We can try using it with relation to finance too. So ACC, awareness, clarity, and choice. So as a first step, it's very important to understand your relationship with money. This is quite critical because most of us, do not spend the time and effort to think about our relationship, and that is, as always, the first step. Clarity. Once you have established this awareness, you can answer the question as to what needs your attention, to have clarity of your goals, and make a plan for it. And finally, we have the accountability piece of the conversation. where you can hold yourself accountable to the goals that you've set for yourself and stay on track to reach these goals for better financial health, and have a sustainable transformation to meet not only your financial goals but also your personal goals. I see Krish has a question. We shall discuss that. I would definitely address this at the end of the conversation. Okay, so let's ask a series of questions to reflect about what our attitude towards finance is. I'm going to ask you a few questions, and please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat box. So, like all good coaches, let's ask open-ended questions that have the potential to create new learning. What is the importance of money in your life? When I ask this question, I get a variety of different answers. At one end, people say it's not important. I don't think about it. At the other end, people say it's the entire point of my life. I think about it all the time. Me personally, I spent a lot of my career, driven by money in a sense. So a lot of the decisions that I took, whether it was decisions related to education, to career choices, to cities that I lived in 7 different cities in 5 different countries over the last 20 years. It's been driven by trying to answer the question, can I make more money? Of course, that has changed over the last few years, but that's a topic for a separate discussion altogether. So yeah, please do think about what is the importance of money, and also about how you would describe your relationship with money. Some of the words that I've heard are, it's a love-hate relationship. It's a hard taskmaster. A friend that I was speaking to last week said she had a difficult relationship because she was brought up with a set of beliefs, and as she launched her career as an entrepreneur, some of those beliefs had to be challenged for her to be able to build a successful business and do commercial transactions. So we do have a different set of relationships, and each of us may or may not be aware of these relationships. And finally, if you did not have to work to earn money, what positive impact would it have on you? I realize it's probably not a practical thing to think about, but it can be quite liberating in terms of getting a sense of the perspective of what you're trying to achieve with your life. When I asked this question to a friend recently, not recently actually, quite a few months back, he said, "Oh, the answer is quite easy. I would live my life following my passion." And there was silence. It's like something clicked in his brain, and over the last 6 months, he spent his life trying to, reimagine and reframe his life where he has a better congruence between what he does for a living and what his passion is. So it's just that shift in perspective that can really help you in getting to lead a fulfilling life. Another friend who I asked the question said, she would just do more of what she was currently doing. So that reinforces and gives you a better sense and understanding of where you are. So this is the awareness building process that one could follow. I can see Chris typing that it's just a tool for transaction. It's how we use it for a meaningful purpose. Now, this is a very constructive belief. So you could have, why is this awareness important? Because, you could have constructive beliefs and you could have beliefs that are actually disempowering. What Chris mentioned is a constructive belief. You could think it's a tool, it's something that gives me strength and security, it's an enabler. However, if you believe, have beliefs like, I'm not good with numbers, I lose spirituality, these are, valid beliefs, but they may not be as empowering in the sense of the life you want to create. So once you've achieved, the question is, why is having this awareness important? This awareness of, how we interact with our beliefs. I put this into 3 buckets in terms of understanding how these beliefs interact with various aspects of my life. The what, the when, and the where. The what refers to the parts of life that these beliefs impact. Basic life sustenance, right? Everybody, for all of us, safety, security is important. So if I went back to the earlier belief, like if you had a belief that money is evil and you don't think about money and you don't plan, so in a time like today, in a COVID-19 situation, you could very easily find yourself in a situation where your safety and security needs are compromised. Therefore, it has an interaction in the kind of life you want to lead. You might have aspirations in terms of goals and living standards, and some of these beliefs, might be limiting for you to be able to, lead the life that you desire. The when refers to, the time aspect. Some of, there are shorter term goals like lifestyle aspirations, consumption aspirations, and there are long term goals like education, retirement, etc. It's worth thinking about how your beliefs interact with these time defined goals, and if they're supporting or not supporting what you're trying to achieve. The where refers to whether its impact on your personal or your professional life. For example, you might have a very fulfilling career as a coach, but a money belief might limit your ability as to how you think about pricing your services, and that in turn may affect things that you're aspiring for. If you price your services too low, you might be working too hard, and you may not get the kind of work-life balance that you're looking for. Therefore, having the awareness of these relationships is important for you to be able to, understand the impact it has on the various aspects of life. So, as when we work with clients, everybody comes with, with an end goal, but then, we're trying to understand the expression of desire to, be able to achieve that end goal. So, this can help in that process. Okay. So once you've gone through the awareness phase, it's worth looking at what needs our attention to uncover the gap, in a sense, in the second stage. I put this in 3 different buckets: income, spending, and investments. Now, income. So for some people, you really need to pay attention to the income aspect of things. Now, let me tell you a story about a friend of mine. She was a banker, very successful banker in in Hong Kong. And she had a very good career, and she did very well. However, she was quite underpaid relative to her peers, and she knew this. And for a number of years, she lived with this understanding, and she came. She never accepted it, but it did bother her. So when we were talking about this, we when we were talking about this, we realized that there were some beliefs that did not allow her to talk about the income with her boss. The beliefs were basically she believed in hard work, and believed in the exact that if you work hard, you get paid well, and it's a fair word. And therefore, she would never have the conversation with her boss. But however, through our discussions, we did come to the understanding that she needs to raise this with the boss, and so it took a lot of effort, role play, building up the confidence. So she goes up to the boss and says, I've been thinking about this, and I haven't, I think I'm underpaid, and I really need a pay hike because. And the boss just cut her off, said, "Okay." And she was stunned because she had the entire list of arguments to support her case, and she couldn't present that. And then she's like, "Okay." The boss said yes. Then she got angry as to if you're willing to give me a pay hike, why didn't you give it to me before? And the boss said, because you never asked for it. So it's a simple thing, right? So once you understand that this is where you need to pay attention to, you could build your plan and set your goals accordingly. Spending, for some people, it's spending that we need to pay attention to. There was a managing director in a bank I knew who made a very healthy salary, but he had a lifestyle that would not allow him to live in Hong Kong if he didn't have this job, and the lifestyle included a Ferrari and a yacht and things, he couldn't imagine himself without these things because they gave him the sense of identity. And he was like, if I didn't have my Ferrari, what would people think about me? In a sense, nobody else thought about it, but it was just him. And, he got the satisfaction not from driving the Ferrari, but the fact that other people viewed him differently. So it's worth understanding, what you're spending on. Goes back to the earlier point I asked, what does a rich life look like to you? So that could help you, uncover the gap in terms of spending. Or else, it could also be investments. You might be earning well, you might be saving enough, but you might have goals, aspirations in terms of retirement, etc. But if you're not spending enough time thinking about your investments, then you are not enabling yourself to reach your goal. So going back to the earlier belief, which is disempowered, is like, I'm not good with numbers, I can't handle investments. If you have that belief, you may not be paying attention to your investments, and hence that may not enable you to get to the goal, the financial goal that you have. So that's about how you uncover the gap, having got to that awareness. And once you have uncovered the gap, you can set goals for yourself. And the goals again would be in the 3 buckets that I mentioned, because those are the aspects. So if income is where you need to pay attention to, it could be about if you're self-employed, if you're a service professional, how you price your service. If you're salaried, as I mentioned in the earlier story, having negotiations in salary, supplementing your income, exploring other business activities, partnerships, etc. If it's expenses that you're struggling with, then to spend time thinking about having a spending plan. If you need budgeting, organize expenses, or it could be as simple as understanding needs and wants. Understanding what really gives you joy, and what you should be spending on, and what you maybe can afford not to spend on, things like that. And when it comes to investments, if you're thinking about investments, it's about setting goals for yourself in terms of having emergency funds, and in terms of having a service target, savings target. Are your investments diversified? Do you have adequate protection? So this point on automated savings, right? Paying yourself first. That's actually quite important, and I think a lot of us pay less attention to it. It's about thinking about savings, automating the savings decision. Like every month you pay rent, so you invest every month, and paying yourself first, so invest first before you pay other expenses. So these are simple behaviors. But the point is, once you've gone through the process of uncovering the gap, then this is really where you need to be paying attention to. You might have very healthy investment habits, but if you really need to increase your income, but so that's where you really need to be paying your attention. And in terms of goal setting, you could also use other techniques like SMART goals, like specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-bound goals for each of these things. And that will kind of help you stay accountable going forward. Just a couple of more slides. Okay, and last bit was about measuring. Because accountability is always key for any transformation for you to happen. Now, with regards to measurements, it's very personal. That depends on the goals that you have. So it's very specific. I can't give you specific examples there, but what you have on the screen are positive behaviors and not negative behaviors in a sense. So the ones in green are the things that are going to enable you to be financially healthy. So if you've got regular savings, you've got healthy money beliefs, you've got adequate insurance, if you manage to own a home, I understand that's a stretch for a lot of people, but if you have emergency funds and you have investments aligned with your life goals, you are on your way to be quite financially healthy. So it's quite simple behaviors that can enable it. However, if you have a lot of the orange boxes, then yes, you need to pay some more attention and maybe think about getting help with regard to these things. So the message I wanted to give is, if you're ticking most of the green boxes, then you are quite financially healthy. And if you see yourself ticking more of the orange boxes, then it's worth having a conversation, maybe with yourself. If not, maybe somebody who can help you with this. In fact, it's actually in a COVID-19 world, it's actually become quite severe and serious. There's like the American Fed had some statistics saying more than 40% of American households do not have an emergency fund of $400. That's how little. $400. They don't have that emergency fund to meet any emergency. And this is not even an emerging country we're talking about. We're talking about the richest nation in the world. And that's how things are. It's about 80% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, they don't have regular savings. So even though it's quite simple how you can be financially healthy, it's actually not that easy, and you need to cultivate those positive habits to stay on track. So that's most of it, and I just wanted to summarize here. As I mentioned, it's quite simple to be financially healthy. Just 3 steps to it: reflect, have a positive attitude towards finance. Don't avoid talking about money. Be aware of your beliefs. Plan for it. Have clarity about what your goals are, both personally and financially, and how they interact. And have specific goals in whether it's income, expenses, investments, etc. And measure regularly. Check if you don't have a regular savings, how do I get to that? If I don't have an emergency fund, how do I get to that? Do I have insurance? So, simple things. And once you've done that, you're financially healthy, and that's a big stress off your head. And then, once you've got this out of the way, then you can really focus on what's important in your life. We as coaches find joy in, making other people, having an impact on other people's lives, making a difference to other people. So we can really focus on, on the place that we really add value. And, this should not honestly be an area that requires too much attention or stress. Once you've gone through these 3 steps, you can feel confident and focus on the really important things in life. So that's the message I wanted to give you. That is quite simple. I just wanted to finish with basic financial planning. It's quite basic, actually. I'm sure most of us know this. So you've got to spend less than you earn, invest, diversify, automate savings. But I just wanted to leave it as coaches, because most of us are coaches here. We have variable incomes, right? And while expenses remain fixed, so you have some months that you make a lot and some months you don't. And that becomes a challenge, and especially if you move from a corporate job where you've got a steady monthly paycheck coming in, and that is a different mindset. So it might help to adopt a flexible mindset. What do I mean by a flexible mindset? Explore options. Can you convert your income into variable income strategy? Like if instead of pricing by the hour, you get can you get a retainership with the company, or spread your income over equal installments and stuff like that. Or of course, if you can increase savings, that's great. You could also think about making expenses variable. Some of the expenses are non-discretionary, but you do have discretionary expenses. Suppose there's something that you want to spend on, but instead of spending it now, you could tell yourself, I'm going to spend it the month that I make the money. So maybe you could explore strategies of making expenses variable. And in case you need help, get professional help. There are lots of professionals out there, accountants, experts, etc. And lastly, don't be fixated on cutting costs. There's a limit on how much you can cut costs, but there's no limit on how much we can earn. So let's get positive, focus on the areas that need our attention, and live a fulfilling and balanced life. So that's all I have. It is a short presentation, but I'm happy to take any questions on finance. I haven't spoken a lot about investing or specific questions and strategies, but because I want to tie it into the coaching aspect. But if you have questions on any aspect, I'll be happy to take them. Leona, on to you.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Yes.
Thank you for it's a really good reflective space for me to think of my own financial health, and thank you for the very structured and alternative way using our ACC model for us to rethink about our financial health as coaches. I have a couple of questions here before I open floor. The first thing is people ask whether you make the slides be available to them. Is that possible?
Yeah, sure. Not a problem.
And then with that, I have a suggestion that Ganesh, if you can put your email address in the chat.
Sure.
For people that would like to get your slides, they can write to you. Then they can write to you directly so that you can send it to them directly.
Sure.
Because we don't have a central place to put up your slides for people to fetch. Okay, cool? Happy for everyone? So we are all accountable for getting the slides from Ganesh directly. So Ganesh is putting his email address to the chat now. And then when you're talking about the topic of financial freedom, Krish, I think that one you saw as well. She, Krish actually posted a personal experience about her friend who's got financial freedom, but do not have inadequate health. The question actually posed to all the participants for tonight, who are coaches. Krish asked, what's our thoughts from a coaching perspective when someone got trapped in, I have financial freedom, but I do not have enough health to enjoy it?
That's an interesting question. So as I said, health, financial health, they're just different aspects. Like I said, the definition of health, right? It's about, it's quite fundamental to be able to, live a fulfilling life.
Oh, sorry, Ganesh, before you click, may I ask everyone to turn on your video as well, so that we can see all your handsome and beautiful faces? Yeah, great. Martina, I can see that.
Martina is there. Yes. That's nice. Hi, Martina.
Yay. See all these beautiful faces on us. Okay, so Ganesh, please carry on, and I'll let everyone chip in for that view.
I'm not an expert on health, but maybe Carmen, if she's here, could share. But I would think you need the same thing. If you have a problem, you need to address it. You need to get help for it. And I don't know what inadequate health it is, but it's probably need to be attended to. Like you have any other problems. If you have a financial problem, you can have a counselor and advisor to work with you and develop strategies, a plan, and work towards it. So you can't not sure what Chris is expecting from this, but it unable to spend because of inadequate health. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Leona, on this?
I guess it is an open discussion for everyone that's joining tonight. Because tonight we're talking about our own achieve financial health, but that's funny that sometimes if we have financial health and we might not lose our physical health. So maybe Krish, would you please tell us more about what makes you want to discuss about this topic? Is Krish still here?
I think he has left.
Let me see. Okay, I cannot find Krish. Maybe it's dismissed. So Krish, are you still there, hidden, and cannot hear you? If not otherwise, then I like to draw on to Herbert posted that. Herbert actually asked Ganesh that we would like to hear more about diversification.
I'm assuming you're talking about investment diversification.
Yeah.
Well, investment diversification, like, that's quite basic. So, don't put all your eggs in one basket. It's quite simple as that. Have different asset classes, as much as possible, so that in today's day and age, you don't know what's going to happen. And also it depends on what country you live in. Like if you're from Lebanon, for example, you're going through a financial crisis now and you can't really do much. So it depends on your personal circumstances and what you can. But it makes sense to diversify, and diversify just doesn't mean in terms of assets, but also simple things like having different bank accounts or stuff like that. Just think about it as a risk control mechanism. So I don't know if you have specific asset allocation questions in terms of how much you should have in equities or fixed income or gold, etc. But that will probably be a very different discussion.
So Herbert, would you like to expand your question, or your question's been addressed?
It has been addressed much, Ganesh.
Yes. Yes, Herbert.
My question has been asked. It has been addressed. Thank you very much, Ganesh.
Okay, Herbert, I see a message that your bandwidth is low, so probably when you're speaking with your video, we cannot quite hear you.
I think he said he's happy with the.
Yeah, he's happy. Okay,
yeah.
Okay, that's good. Good. So, and if Herbert, you have more to ask, maybe put in the chat, it's easier. And then Carmen, you have a question. Would you like to speak up instead of for us reading the chat? Carmen's question is, hi, Carmen.
Yeah, can you hear me? Because I didn't put on my headset.
Yep.
Yeah, so my question is like, sometimes there are clients that they are not so financially literacy, but they also not like very interested in knowing more or learn more about finance to start from basic, right? So do you have any like experience or tips that usually how you will start coaching this type of client, right? Because they probably really start from the very basic to like understand their financial health, etc. But it's like you cannot teach them like all the finance 101.
Okay. I was curious, why do you want to teach finance 101 to someone who's not interested in it?
I think sometimes it's like client generally may share, okay, this is like my finance situation, then I have some like short-term or longer-term goal, like even like longer-term goal maybe to buy a property, or short-term is to clear my stock loan, that type of student loan, that type of thing. But they may not have a very good like a personal finance background.
Sure.
It's more like, I'm just thinking like, it's more like a tactical approach, like very practical to kind of coach them, or it's more because I also think that somehow in a way that they need to understand and start to appreciate the importance to, they need to be more active in managing this, right? Not so much like you tell them, okay, this is like step 1 to 10 that you need to do it.
Sure.
But it's a journey that they kind of need to take on for themselves.
Okay. So what I hear from your question is, the client has an objective of, reaching a goal. However, they are unable to, reach it because of certain behaviors in a sense. So what would be interesting to, explore with the client is, why, what's the limiting belief, or, what's happening behind, what's not enabling them to, display the behaviors they need to achieve the goals. And once you are able to address that, you might have a better sense of, how to, how to enable them to pay attention. If somebody needs to buy a house but is not willing to, understand how to save, that's a conflict, right? So what supports this belief that they don't want to invest in learning how to save? So it might be useful to get a better understanding of that, and then reframe that in a sense to enable them to get to the goals without. So the problem with finance is that it becomes a very boring topic, very technical topic, and most people don't want to impact that. Which is why in the presentation I try to take the coaching approach, saying let's uncover the gap. Let's figure out where is it that how can we address this so that the client, so partner with the client to evoke this sense from within the client, and that will in itself bring in the the motivation for the client to make the change. So you can't teach accounting to somebody who doesn't want to learn accounting, right?
Yeah, sure. Thanks.
And Carmen, I put in my 5 cents. I think tonight in Ganesh presentation, there's quite a few good awareness questions that we can chuck on to a client that maybe they have the wish, but certain resources they need to obtain themselves. So maybe really starting from creating their awareness, some of the good questions for them to calibrate themselves to see where they're at and where they really want to be, can create some dynamic within the client to go to get the resources they need.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, feedback, questions.
Actually, somebody had a question here. Sorry, one second. Any advice for financial planners who are aspiring to be coaches? Actually, I did mention I would talk about the difference between financial coaches and financial advisors or financial planners. Financial planners and advisors are, have different objectives. A financial advisor or a planner is telling you what to do, and mostly in terms of investments and maybe in terms of expenses. A financial coach partners with the client to take a holistic view about all aspects and understand the goals that the individual has. So it's a much more holistic approach, and you've got to understand the incentives are very different. So as a financial coach, you're actually paying the coach to achieve a goal that you're trying to achieve. But with a financial advisor, the financial advisor is actually making money by selling you products. So bankers, so it's a very different objective. So so you have to be aware of this, and it's much cheaper to have a financial coach than a financial advisor because they take a percentage, and over the long run it is quite expensive. But they do have give you expert advice. So you've got to understand what your needs are in that sense. And if you are a financial advisor, I'm not sure you want to be a coach because as an advisor, you're definitely making more money than what a financial coach would make. That's a fact. That's why the bankers make so much money.
Well. Imagine that that someone is by trade is a financial advisor, but is with a coach mindset.
Well, that'd be very powerful. Then the advisor will be working for your benefit. But then you have to be aware of, there are these differences in, the incentives, the incentive structure. So it's not aligned. The incentive for the financial advisor is to sell you more products, so he gets a commission. So we may not be necessarily aligned with your objective of reaching to your financial goals.
Yeah. Okay, there's a new questions from Radu.
Radu, go ahead. What's the question?
Yeah, I'm curious about this, my relationship with money. I feel it can bring a lot of value for a client. I didn't encounter it yet in my experience. I was curious from your experience while working on this topic. So maybe if you can share a case or an example on this kind of topic.
One that I already shared was, this client who was brought up with this belief that money is evil, right? And too much money, or that was the lifestyle that she grew up in, and then she transitioned into an entrepreneurial career where she had to price her services competitively enough to survive and build her business, and that had to shift about am I making too much money? Am I a sellout? Am I being true to my values? So she had to deal with these aspects. So that was an expressed aspect. I've had clients who it's unspoken. So for example, in relationships, right? If you've got a spouse who's got spending habits that are very different to yours, that could lead to tension, and unless you express it, a lot of times it's unconscious. You don't realize it, you don't actually express it, but it builds up and it creates unsettling. So when you go through the awareness process and clarify this understanding, that then helps you address, okay, this is where I need to, this is why I'm reacting the way I am reacting. And that has helped me in a couple of situations where just bringing the unconscious belief into the conscious belief about what your relationship with money is, that makes all the change.
And while exposing this part of the unconscious, does, for example, metaphor work?
Yeah, I'm sure.
For example, this relation is like what? If you have a collection of metaphors, I would be very interested to hear some.
I don't have a collection of metaphor, unfortunately, but I can think about it. I have to think about it. If I would definitely share it with you once it comes to my mind.
I have.
Yeah, go ahead.
So when thinking of the relationship, if money and I, to me, is that money to me, is that candy for me, or is a painkiller for me, or it is vitamins for me. So that will bring me to think about my relationship with my money. So it's a way of the different type of things we put in our mouth, put that into a metaphor, and that will have impact to our overall well-being.
In fact, can I share something that a client mentioned? When she was doing pro bono mentoring, coaching, and then she transitioned to charging for her services, and she was already doing this before. And the term she used, I felt dirty asking for money. And this is just an expression of how you feel. That was interesting for me.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Rakesh.
First of all, thank you, Ganesh. We usually don't think about this, but this is a good reason for us to think about it. So thank you very much. The question I had was, the reason I'm thinking about this question is because of, what Krish had mentioned, who's not here. He mentioned about now the person has all the money, but is not healthy. That is one. And when Carmen had mentioned about the example, what she stated, a part of what you said was the person may want to save, should have this intention to save wisely, to buy a house, something to that effect. What came to my mind was a friend of mine who believes in the now. Okay. And it's not necessarily he has a lot of money, but he takes advantage of what you had mentioned as ask for help, as one of the things in one of the slides, right? Ask for help, to ask for help. So how I understood that ask for help as seeking, help or assistance from banks, like maybe loans or whatever. So this is what came to my mind. I'm just trying to convey the idea of what I'm saying. So this guy, he's not into saving, but then he has bought a $1.3 million house on a 30-year mortgage because he wants to live now when he's got the health. Okay, and he's got a nice car. He's very happy, and everything is mostly on credit, but he somehow manages to pay it. But then he's happy now while he's able to manage the time and has got the health. So how wise or not wise is this way of looking at the relationship with money?
Well, I don't think it is in my place to comment on whether it's a wise or not wise. It's his decision, it's a client's decision to live the life that he chooses. That's the goal and aspiration. So you work, for what the client wants. Now, as long as he's aware of the choices he's making, so he's made the choice that now is important to me, and therefore that's a belief. And if A, he's got to be aware of it, and B, he's got to be aware of the risks he's taking, etc. And if that gives him joy and that's the life he wants to live, who am I to say whether that's wise or unwise? So, yeah, it's a personal choice, right?
From a financial advisor hat, do we come across many of them who look at life from this perspective, or how useful or not would it be if you would have to advise someone?
If I had to advise as a financial advisor, I'll ask him to, take as much loan, as much advice, things he wants as of now. I make more commissions. So I'm sure he has enough advisors asking him to live in the now and buy more than say no. But if I was a coach and he came to me as to, advice as to a different life he wants to lead, or he has goals that are different to living in the now, we could work on, enabling that process. But if I was an advisor and he comes to me and says, I need more loan, if he's got a credit score, I'm happy to give him a loan and make my commission. So it's very different incentive systems. So yeah, it depends on, what the need is here, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, what I understand and what you're saying is, as long as we can take advantage of it in a calculated way, it is a win-win, for the financial institutions and for the individual. Absolutely. As long as, thank you.
Yeah, so some people live life in the now, and they can continue living in the now. Some people live in the now, and the circumstances can change, and there are consequences. So life's about the risk reward that you are comfortable with, and that depends on the value systems that you have, the beliefs that you have, what you've grown up with. So it's very personal and individual in that sense. So I gather from your questioning is that kind of a lifestyle doesn't appeal to you. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know.
I mean, as you mentioned, sometimes about how much is enough. So that depends on people. So
that's a very different question. How much is enough? Because when you ask that question, that reminds me of this Wall Street movie, right? It's the second movie, and they ask the question, how much? What's your number? In a sense, and the protagonist was trying to say that what's the number when you walk away from everything, and the guy turns around and says it's more. For some of us, there's no number. It's just having more. We get the joy from having more. It's not. That is the goal. It's not. So in that case, it's not an enabler, but that is the goal. Therefore, you think about it very differently. What the number is.
Thank you, Ganesh.
Ganesh, I have a question as well.
Yeah.
Maybe you answered it already in parts, but I just wanted to go ahead for it again, because as coaches have a lot of experience in other fields, as you have in finance, I have in different other fields as well. And very often my clients come from this experience part I have as well, and come to me because I have that professional experience in their career background. So very often they ask me while I'm coaching for advice, or afterwards, or in between, and I have to change hats, or I have to be very careful to stick in my coaching role. How are you handling that when you are with your client in a coaching process, and the coachee of a client is going to address that experience of yours and just ask you for real concrete advice from your professional experience? Because I think that happens to all of us in all kinds of different fields where we are experienced in.
Sure. I'm sure there are more experienced coaches in the panel, and I would, you and I and everybody encourage, and I would encourage them to, chip in. So I don't personally, coach on financial topics. It might come up in a coaching conversation, but I don't pick up a client in a coaching conversation because, I appreciate that there's experience on that. And I don't give financial advice because, it's financial advice is regulated. You need licenses and there's different jurisdictions, which is why if you look at my presentation today, there's no financial advice there because I'm not registered. It's very, it's a legal field. It's a very delicate field. So if that comes up, for me, it's a clear no, and I wouldn't give financial advice in a coaching conversation.
So
but I appreciate your question. Yes, I wouldn't go down that road.
Yeah. Okay.
So somebody asked me about diversification. So I can give you a generic answer, but I wouldn't say you should have 20% in equities and 30% in fixed income and in these asset classes. I would not say that in a webinar, because that you need to be regulated and licensed to be giving that kind of advice. So I'm quite clear about not going down that path. But that can happen in other areas, and Leona, somebody, if you have any thoughts around how to not give advice while coaching, please do share. I see Noor is also here. So,
well, I think it's of course, if we address based on the ICF core competencies, then Ganesh, we have the correct answer that we are not there to do any advice. But then when we are actually running our own business, it's really up to the agreement. But obviously, if we get into making any financial advice, that will be risk if we are not licensed to do so. So that is an area that we have to manage our professional boundary then. Because at the end of the day, if we put up a sign saying that we are a certified professional coach, then we need to demonstrate that we have the goods to show before we can offer to our client. Yeah. In fact, I see an interesting comment in the chat by Noor. You said, or I feel like a charity. Would you please share a bit more about that charity thoughts?
I'm sorry, I might have a lot of background noise today. And thank you, Ganesh and Leona, for this great presentation. But yeah, I'm just reflecting on the different metaphors. I like what Radu asked, so I'm thinking of the different metaphors. I would say I feel like a charity. I also wrote, Radu, another metaphor that comes to mind with my relationship with money is a love-hate relationship. I'm just trying to.
Great sharing. Yeah. Thank you.
So it comes to mind.
Yeah, good example. Thanks. Okay, anyone else? Feedback sharing, or this webinar make you think of something that you really would like to share with us?
I like to add just a little bit. I mean, because this is a very specific occasion we talk about these things. I really resonate with what Martina shared. About how we can stay away from this expertise that we have into the situation. So, because, for example, Ganesh may, offer to be a financial coach. And so the clients who come there will be, more driven by that, expertise of a financial coach than a professional coach, right? You see what I'm saying? So how I understand that is, like, for example, Martina has, experience in some various other fields, and then she decided to be a coach. I have experience in few other fields, and I'm desiring to become a coach. So I think that this earlier part of the term, which comes before we say that we are a coach, like, for example, I'm a success coach, right? Or a creative coach, or a mind transformative coach, right? So I think that aspect of it, like in case of Ganesh, if he's a financial coach, I think it only says that he understands the depth of the experience of what the client is going through while the client speaks or shares about specifics in their story. So that's how I understand that. Because of course, we have to be very consciously aware of not, intervening in the client story, or, so I just wanted to share this because this is the question which, deeply meant something to me as well. So I just wanted to share.
Just on that, how specific would you be on the contracting stage in terms of how far you would be willing to go to share your expertise?
So sharing expertise is how I look at that is the expertise comes only. So this financial, for example, right? If it's a financial coach, the financial expertise goes only to the extent of getting to understand what the client is actually going through beyond words. So that's what I'm trying to say, because they may be talking about some things which you will understand better the seriousness and the depth of it than if I'm there, for that financial coaching session. So yeah, I think I'll be safer to stick with the ICF ethics.
Sure.
And just take them. Yeah. Thank you.
And Rakesh, if I can add something here, and it's also a wonderful opportunity for you to dig deeper in the way of your coaching and get to a better partnership, a more intensive partnership actually with your client when you can add on your experience, because the way you ask your questions, the way you can reflect back comes from your experience, from your whole background. And that makes a coaching conversation on this specific topic that you're very qualified even more rich for the client, and for the client gives much, much more impactful. So that's my experience. That's how I handle it.
Makes sense.
I don't share my experience, but I can, in the briefing before we start the coaching conversation, I love sometimes to share that specific part, but I'm not giving advice. But that I'm as an expert hope to support them in that specific field because I'm experienced there. In the way how I ask questions, how I can partner with them, and how my understanding can follow their certain situation and make an impact on them.
Sure. Great. So anyone else? So Ganesh, any last words you'd like to share with us to encourage us apply what we learned from you tonight?
Well, I shared whatever I had to share. So if any thoughts come through, you got my email address. Go ahead, shoot me an email. So thank you for all for coming and listening to me. And hope you found something useful there.
So let's put our hands together. Thank you very much, Ganesh, for your time. In fact, I'm very lucky. It's the second time I sit in his presentation. The first time he does this sharing is actually just with our Hong Kong graduates, and now it extends to our global graduates that can enjoy the learning. So thank you very much, Ganesh. And thank you everyone for joining and your active participation. Remember, jot down Ganesh's email address if you still can get it now in order to get the slides from him. So with this, thank you very much. And we'll see you in the next CPD. Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Nice. Thank you.